So much so that when he is captured, the way he behaves, they're like, well, he must be different than them. Because the other ones literally don't leave the cage even when the door's open.
Yes.
And they're like, well, he must be, because look at him.
But can I tell you why I hate that?
Come on.
Touré, I'm sorry.
Come on.
It affirms the white belief that the only reason why we can't succeed is our attitude.
I don't think that's fair.
And I didn't say that that's what the movie's saying. I'm just saying that's why I'm not as excited about that aspect of the film. Because I'm like, yeah, of course a white person would write that. That a black man just decides he's free, and that's all it ever took. That's a very white...
Well, he is liberated by a white man. And then he gets to... Right, of course. And then he gets to show you who he really is.
None of this works for me. His accent isn't even right. I can't. I love Jamie. I love you so much. I love Kerry Washington so much. You know what, Quinn? I even love you as a person, probably. I don't know you. But, like, I can't. That movie, I can't. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
The Touré show. Okay, though. The Touré show. Okay, though.
That might be the best question I've ever been asked.
You're a phenomenal person. I mean, you legendary.
I am a fan of you, my brother.
Justin Simien is one of the great filmmakers of our time. The man behind Dear White People is back with a docuseries called Hollywood Black. It is an extraordinary look at the history of black cinema. So, of course, I had him over to come and argue about black history, black cinema, all the things. Tyler Perry, Ryan Coogler. We talk about Tarantino. We talk about Denzel. We talk about Spike, Jordan, all the stars of black cinema, Blaxploitation. It is an extraordinary conversation about being black at the movies. Let's get into it. It's Justin Simien on Touré Show. How are you?
I'm good, man.
So I love Hollywood Black.
Thank you.
It's this fantastic conversation about black cinema. And of course, you land on Jordan Peele, right? He is the sun around which modern black cinema revolves, right? He's the number one guy right now.
I would say him and Ryan Coogler. Yeah, I mean, Ryan Coogler really is like the reason Marvel is even really in my opinion, like the success of Black Panther is pretty hard to go backwards to.
Coogler. I think he is primarily, I mean, like, he's great. Fruitvale's great, right? But he is Black Panther.
Yeah.
Jordan Peele.
And he's also Creed. So he's got two franchises.
But Jordan Peele.
Hey,
he is a thing. He's a genre.
He is a genre unto himself. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What's his best film?
I mean, for me, it's still Get Out. Get Out, I still watch that movie, and it's a miracle movie where I'm like, I recognize new craft in it each time I watch it. It's deceptively simple, but what he's doing, you know, I've had some experience in the horror space myself, especially with black characters. And it is so the navigating the horror tropes, because with the horror movie, you both have to like get the horror kids who have seen everything, which means you have to prove a knowledge and understanding of how the tropes work and how they always work and then subvert them a little bit. So you got that. But then you also have black people who have a different experience altogether watching a horror movie. And what happens to the black character in that movie affects us in kind of different ways. And he, in that movie, is sort of navigating both of those sets of expectations and happens to make a brilliant film with something to say that sneaks up on... It's like a miracle movie.
A brilliant conversation about race through horror. And I think that he chose the wrong ending.
Oh.
And we all know the original ending was...
Hard disagree.
A real cop comes, he gets arrested, and there's a scene where he's talking to Lil Rel, and then he walks off into prison. And I'm like, that is reality. And like we know
that's reality, but that would not have been a success. It would not have been a successful. And I know this in my bones because I literally did this myself. Bad Hair ends with that lead character dying in what I think is a deliciously horrific way. But boy, oh boy, people were upset about it. And maybe that's okay that they can be upset, but like it really the dynamic in a horror movie is just reversed with Black people because we're used to seeing ourselves die and be denigrated on screen.
Die first.
And die first, but just die at all. Like meet a horrible, tragic, untimely end. So when it happens to us in a narrative, it doesn't hit in the same. It literally, from an entertainment point of view, it doesn't hit in the same way. In Get Out, when you just are positive he's about to go to jail because that's how the trope always works. And it's Laurel, and he doesn't go to jail. The exuberance that I felt in myself and in the audience, that's what movie making is about. It's about unleashing that feeling in an audience. And it actually was like and I know this is a thing people talk, I have this conversation all the time, it's one of my favorites, but that's where I've landed on it, is that it actually was more novel to end it the way he ends it. And I believe they even tested that original ending. I could be wrong.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
and people didn't like it.
But it was like, I get it.
I feel like it's a little jokey to have like, his best buddy shows up and not the cops and they escape. But you're saying...
But I didn't see it coming. What I saw coming was him dying. And with a horror movie, there has to be an element of surprise in the way it ends. And for whatever reason, when Black people die on screen, it doesn't have that same surprise factor.
But part of what you're saying is, as a filmmaker, especially with Black audiences, you kind of want to send them home happy.
I'm not going to say happy. It's not always send them home happy, but you do have to surprise them. Yeah, you have to surprise any audience, I think. And I think the way you surprise an audience is you lead them down a path, you sort of anticipate what they're going to expect next, and you find a way to give them what they didn't know they wanted. That's always how you're trying to end a movie. And it just so happens in that movie, because it's a horror and it has a horror structure, that and I can't even say that movie's happy. This man is messed up for life. I mean, the things the gaslighting, he escapes with his physical life, but his psychological life is in tatters, okay? And I feel like, Jordan in that movie, for me, he surprised me, and it was an inevitable ending. And I feel like that's just really good storytelling. That's holding an audience in your hand, and you can do it in a tragic way, you can do it in a positive way, but if he had gone to jail at the end of that movie, nothing would have been surprising about that ending. It would have just been like, yeah, racism, we know.
Right. But
we already know.
I think the Peele canon is rife for argument as far as what's the best, right? And reasonable people could, I think Us reaches very high heights in complexity and nuance.
Yeah.
And the depth of the metaphor. Nope is so deep.
Yeah, Nope is
and
really
a conversation about making movies and dealing with the past and who you really are, who you want to be, and whatever is going on above us.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way we sort of project certain ideas onto things that we don't understand, I thought was really interestingly applied. That's the thing about what I love about what Jordan is doing, is that he is, like you said, he's creating his own lane, he's creating his own genre. And it does remind me of Kubrick, where when you watch for me, I'm a big fan of Stanley Kubrick, but the first few times I encountered his movies, I was like, that's not how a movie is supposed to work, sir. I'm 12, what am I thinking? But I'm like, that's not a space movie. What are you talking, where are the lasers, But he's sort of he's doing a thing that is very actually difficult as a Black filmmaker to do. Spike has gotten away with it a few times, where you get the audience to bend past their own expectations into your set of expectations for what a narrative should be. And that to me is just really exciting to see that happening.
Nope gives us perhaps the most original and beautiful vision of an alien ever.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
The alien that he created, right? I'm like, how did you come? Because all aliens, they don't look like that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the sky shark.
The sky shark.
It's such a cool idea.
A dragon jellyfish sort of thing.
Yeah.
I want to know, what were his notes for, here's how we're going to do this.
I also want to know what he was. It feels like he was drawing from some conspiracy theory thread that I've never heard of, but seems really interesting. I feel like somewhere on TikTok there was someone talking about sky sharks or something, and how they're really it's just it's such a fleshed out like narrative world that you're discovering in Nope.
I mean, Kaluuya's character is beautiful to me because if you respect the animals, the beasts, and treat them with respect and kindness, then they will respond. You first see it with the horses. He doesn't really like talking to people.
Yeah.
But with horses, he's good.
Yeah.
Right? And he treats them with love and respect.
Yes.
When the one gets out of the enclosure, he's just sidles up to him like, "Hey, what are you looking at?"
Yeah.
Not like, "Get back where you're supposed to be," but like, What are we looking at?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go home now.
Yeah.
And the way that he interrelates with the alien, like I can talk to him. I can make it like, like do kind of what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Spike Lee gets a lot, obviously, of love in Hollywood Black.
Of course.
One of the biggest names in Black cinema history.
Yeah.
Maybe the biggest. I think there's maybe 3 eras of Spike, at least 2, right? Early Spike, he's on fire. Those first 5, maybe 6, 7 pictures.
Yeah.
And then things start to go a little awry.
Do they? With Spike?
Chirac. Clockers.
First of all, Clockers is good. I love Clockers. Don't make that face with Clockers. My God.
The audience that I saw it with was laughing at the end when they should not have been.
Well,
wait, Clockers, and what was the one about?
But see, this is a conversation we were just having about Jordan, because I respect a filmmaker that takes the punch. Like I really do. That like really tries for something and really tries to stretch. And it doesn't always work for everybody, and it doesn't work every film. I mean, the ending of Jungle Fever is a little wild. Do you know what I'm saying? But I think someone yells no at the sky. Like it's like it really kind of comes out of nowhere.
It's like a young filmmaker.
But and likewise, when everything goes from black and white to color, and she's got to have it. But you know what? When I saw those things for the first time, I was like, oh, bitch, I can do anything.
Right.
And I feel like that's what you're supposed to feel. It's not this expectation that every movie fit you like a designer shoe is crazy. You're supposed to argue about the movie. You're supposed to have both a subjective experience with the movie and also at some point recognize the person who made this thing is another human being with something to say, and now I'm in a conversation with this person. To me, like that is what makes for a great filmmaker. So
it's okay and perhaps natural for us to go to a film and say, okay, I loved that. I take issue with that. And that's just, we're in conversation with the film.
I think so. I had the benefit of going to Performing Arts High School in theater class. The first thing we did was we watched Raising the Sun, actually. This is like how I fell in love with Sidney Poitier. And the first thing she asked us, and wasn't even for movies, we're watching the movie Raising the Sun, and my theater teacher, Susie Phillips, she pauses the screen on the first frame, and it's Sidney Poitier's black face against a white pillow waking up. And she asks us why do you think that's the first shot of the movie? And that was when I knew I was going to be a filmmaker for the rest of my life, because I was like, those are the choices that a filmmaker makes. And, subconsciously, even if you weren't intellectually thinking, oh, he's a black man in a white world, there's something about that image that just hits your psyche. And in that class, she taught us a way of thinking about story. And it wasn't like we had to do these things called play reports. And I've never forgotten. This is how I always process things. She didn't care if you liked it or not. Whether you liked it or not.
That's secondary.
It was a section.
What is it?
What is it trying to do? Did it do that? And was doing that worth doing? And those were the questions.
Your opinion of is it good or bad is getting in the way of you understanding what is this. And that reminds me
especially because there are artists like Bertolt Brecht who want you to hate it. This is a playwright. He wants you to rub up against the aspects of his plays that feel artificial because he's making a statement about reality and da-da-da-da. And it's like, yeah, that's how art should function. It should be like a meal.
Questlove talks about this, that he does not think about music as good or bad, right? He got divorced from that years ago. He's like, what is it trying to do, and does it succeed at that? And how does it work, and why does it work or not?
I want more black people specifically, because we run the culture, obviously, but I want us to get accustomed to that way of digesting art, especially because when we make art, it's still there's a filmmaker named Beverly Cleary who said this, and I agree. Black film is still in its experimental stage. We are still nascent.
Really?
Yes, compared to the other kinds of tropes and characters, and we're still like white Hollywood is still like on the hero's journey kind of a thing. We have other ways of telling our stories that have not had, multiple generations of trying out that story with casts and audiences. So yeah, we're still in a nascent stage. I think it's really important for us to figure out a way to talk about things, even if we don't like them, given the environment of making Black art is so fragile that I think, that's how movies like Sidewalk Stories by Charles Lane get lost, because they don't hit some kind of, we do this one in episode 4 a little bit, that this is a movie from the 90s, actually it's from the 80s, it came out the same year as Do the Right Thing, but it didn't hit that sort of like sweet spot of what, where Black culture was at. It's not hip hop. It's not colorful. It's a silent movie. It's actually like kind of sweet and tender and quiet, and it didn't hit that sort of like Black thing that executives knew how to market for. And so it just gets lost. But if we had our own culture and ability to sort of embrace things we don't quite fully get or like and da-da-da, I don't know. I just think that's a richer way to consume work, and it's a way to hold things that you maybe don't like without sort of shutting down that artist's path. Like with Black stuff, like some folks really only get one shot, and it's always an experiment. And if that experiment doesn't come out exactly right, artistically and for the culture and for the marketplace, all three, you may never hear from that person again.
You remind me of Boots Riley, who's in your film.
I will take that.
Well, just what you're saying, and this is a person who is making subversive films.
Yeah.
These are the most anti-capitalist films that we've ever seen that are actually working in a capitalist system.
Right. It's hard to do. So when something comes out and you didn't live for it, I think the more interesting thing to ask is, what was that trying to do? Did it achieve that? And was that a worthwhile thing to do right now? Of all the things we could be doing, is that a worthwhile thing to do?
Ava DuVernay is one of the stars of Hollywood Black.
Yes, she
Incredible filmmaker, right? I
Yeah.
mean, already an extraordinary career. And what she did with the Central Park 5 story, When They See Us, is so deeply emotional.
Yes.
And for many people, they come to the story with Ken Burns, right? When he does his documentary, and she brings so much more emotion and love, and it's like, okay, Mama is here to like make you guys look right.
Yes, and she does this over and over again. When I saw Origin, I was like, I was furious, because it's like, how do you even do that? How do you take what is like a textbook and make this into an emotionally involving narrative story that doesn't work the way other movies work? And you leave me with a completely new concept of how racism works that changes the way I think about it, changes the way I move through the world. She did that with the 13th. She did that with Selma for me. She made me see the human beings behind this movement. I love, love, love her as a filmmaker, because what catches her attention is so different than what's in the mainstream. And she makes it important to you to see it that way too. And I just think it's a profound talent. That's not something you learn, really.
We were talking about the epic filmmakers of the time, and Coogler is one of them. But I think Black Panther stands above, right, as like one of the central films of this era.
Yeah.
Because artistically and commercially.
Yeah.
And
politically.
Well, that's where I'm going, right?
Okay.
Because I saw Black Panther at a screening at the MoMA. If God forbid a bomb had dropped, half of Black culture would have been. I mean, you couldn't like throw a straw without like, oh, there's Questlove, there's this one, there's that one. Oh my God, this is filled with amazing Black people. So then we already knew, right? And you felt it like, people were like, oh my God, this is gonna be life-changing before we even went in there.
Yes, absolutely.
First weekend with the kids, like all the kids in the neighborhood, we're all going together as families, love it. Okay, as I take a breath in the subsequent years, I'm like, it's really a film about Black people in conflict with other Black people. And they are not in conflict with the white oppressors who are actually holding them down. And in Black Panther 2, we get Black people in conflict with Hispanic people,
Right,
or
sure.
Latino people.
Yeah, sure,
right?
sure.
From under the sea. And we're still not confronting the white people who surely, if T'Challa was a real person,
Yeah, he would be confronting them.
and Killmonger too would be like, they are, and he is saying, Killmonger is saying, we need to like get all our diasporic armies and attack them, right? And T'Challa's like, I'm at war with you. Like, should we not be at war? So why is Black Panther not, the enemy is wrong?
Well, okay.
And I understand the Malcolm Martin thing that they're doing, but
no. Where I'm going with this, though, is we said this in a different setting, so I'll bring it up again. This idea of signifying, right? What is political about Black Panther may not necessarily be in the content of Black Panther, because Black Panther has to be a certain something in order for it to get made, period. What is political about Black Panther is going to Disneyland and seeing Nakia, a black bald warrior with a spear in her hand, kneeling down to hug a little white child from Florida and taking a picture. That is political. That is an image you would have never, ever have seen in a million years.
The elevation of Black people as leaders, as brilliant, as fighters, that is happening.
Yeah, so the content of what's happening in the movie, nobody is going to study this movie to like work out world politics. Like we're not looking at it that way. Just like when we look at Cabin in the Sky or Gone with the Wind, right? The lesson in that movie is not Black women should all be mates. The lesson in that movie is, oh my God, Hattie McDaniel is a genius. You know what I'm saying? So there's some things you got to roll with what you can do for now. But that doesn't make it less political. I think anything Black is automatically political, but the way he sort of maneuvered those archetypes and those characters, we didn't have them in the narrative at all, in the pop culture conversation. We did not have these figures with which to like think about and dream about. So the specifics of the movie, yeah, maybe you're right about that. But again, I don't think the version you just pitched to me, I don't see that coming out anytime soon. I could be wrong.
Well, that's the thing, right? We get one figure who represents the United States government in one, right? And two, we get two.
Yeah.
And he is benevolent. He's trying to help. We should trust him. That they save him is their benevolence, right?
Yeah.
But like the movie 6, we can trust him. He's on our side, right?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yes, really.
The U.S. government is helping us?
Who paid for Black Panther?
Not the U.S. government.
Okay.
Hollywood paid.
Oh. Who in Hollywood?
Who? What are you saying?
I'm saying, like, who made that movie? Who really made that movie from a narrative perspective?
White capitalists in Hollywood.
Thank you. So, of course
But that's not the U.S. government. Oh, you're saying, of course. You can't, they're not going to go for Black Panther will attack America or critique. They don't even critique America.
Yeah, no, of course not. Of course not. But even then, because it's just like Boots, we have to participate inside of this capitalist system. So there are plenty of things that if we had it our way, that's not necessarily the story we would tell, that's not necessarily the genre we would be, on and on in a million different ways. But given things the way they are, I don't know. I find it incredibly political for him to put those images of Black people in power, because nobody is taking away those other things. Although I do hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying.
The deep Africanness. Mm-hmm. And African American, I mean, like this. I love that immensely. The moment when he's first returning to Wakanda in the first film, and he's in this futuristic spaceship, and they see the horseback goat herders, and they wave to each other, and it's like Sankofa and the past. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this. And I'm getting chills in the theater and thinking about it. And 100% political for sure. And like, just Black beauty is political. Like, love it.
Yes. Your critique is with the genre known as the Marvel movie, where things that you come to the movie for happen, and then they stop happening so that we can set up other movies and set up other things. And we've all just kind of accepted that that's how those, it's kind of like a musical, you know? People used to, not anymore, Lord have mercy, they're so controversial now. But back in the day, you went to a musical because you wanted to see so-and-so sing and dance. The story was like, okay,
Right.
You were there, to see Gwen Verdon and them legs in damn Yankees. You could care less about, and I think a little bit of that is this.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe that's my hot take. But
Is Denzel the greatest black actor ever?
wow, I think Denzel's. I don't go for greatest anything, but Denzel is one of the greatest actors. Period, hands down.
For sure.
Oh,
I mean,
my
you could make
God.
an argument greatest actor, period, but I want to just talk about blackness.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because, and it's not just like, and we make this point in Hollywood Black too, it's not just because he's a fantastic actor, which he is. It's because of the decisions that he made, the roles that he played, the roles he didn't play, the ways in which he sort of subverted our expectations of him as a star. I include in that sort of ranking of him as one of the greatest ever.
Who else do you put up on the tip top of your acting pantheon?
Viola's up there,
Viola
for sure.
Davis, for sure.
I don't know. Oh, you know who's going to be up there that I am partly saying it because no one thinks this, but Diana Ross.
Really?
Have you seen Lady Sings the Blues?
For sure.
This woman with no training as an actor. I'm sorry, performance after performance, she's killing it. You can say what you want to say about the scripts she had. You can say one of the things that I look back and think about a lot is after The Wiz, Diana Ross never was in a movie again. And we just didn't have like a black female lead like that for a while. But like that was a kind of black female lead that literally she invented. Like it didn't exist before, and it kind of didn't exist for a long time after. She is completely alive in those movies in a way that is How does Diana Ross convince you that she's Billie Holiday?
I mean, when she's slumped down beside the toilet, I'm like, yo, she is actually having a heroin overdose. It's not acting. That's real.
It is like, and there's only 3 movies to talk about this, and 2 of them were not necessarily like artistically acclaimed, but like for me, like I think about this often. Like she really is like one of the underrated actresses that we've got, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. I'll keep thinking though.
You mentioned The Wiz. It has a special place in your heart.
Yes, it
the
does.
First film you talk about in Hollywood
Yeah,
Black.
yeah.
This is what propelled you.
I know.
This is where you first was like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, The Wiz was like, I mean, it was before I knew filmmaking was a career, before I knew it was something I could do. It was just a world I wanted to escape into as much as possible as a kid. And that world was filled to the brim with black people and fashion and pop music and disco and in its own way a version of ball culture. I mean, it just has everything. And, you know, it excited parts of me that I didn't even have words for, you know, when I was a kid.
When you can't talk about black cinema history without blaxploitation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
a central part of our history.
Mm-hmm.
These are a lot of extraordinary films.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, Sidney Poitier comes before,
Mm-hmm.
extraordinarily dignified,
Yes.
right? Very
And he
NAACP.
slaps that man and into the heat of the night.
We
and
love
it's all over.
We love this. But he is in a way saying if we, it's respectability politics, right? If we act this way and speak this way, then they will respect us on the screen, the other characters, and at the box office. And blaxploitation's like, fuck that.
Yes. Well, they were both right.
We're gonna say both right, but we're gonna speak the way we want to, directly to our people.
Yeah.
I'm going to get laid. What are you gonna go do?
Yeah. You know what makes that possible, though, is the collapse of the studio system. That's what makes blaxploitation possible. The studio system, because here's what happened. Black people were making films. After Birth of a Nation, thanks to Oscar Michaud, we were making our own films right up until World War II. When after World War II, Hollywood said, y'all can't be making all this money for yourselves. So they basically dismantled the black independent market and absorbed some of those actors and created black stars like Sidney Poitier, Lena Horne, but they didn't bring over the black writers or the black directors or the black producers. So what happens at the end of the 60s is, yes, we have Sidney Poitier, but we don't really have the ability to tell stories anymore. We don't have the ability to put our own ideas out there into the narrative. So when the studio system collapses, you have Melvin Peoples going like, okay, bet. Y'all ain't got no money? Great. Let me take these coins. Let me do this non-union. I don't care if you rate it. I don't care what you do. I'm going to make Sweetback's Badass Song for a nickel. And when that became $1 million grosser, That's when all of a sudden Black people were in again, and Black independent filmmakers and producers were in vogue again. But it took like that old system to go away for us to even like break through.
What is the best of the Blaxploitation films for you?
I have a sweet spot for Trouble Man, actually.
Interesting.
That's one of my favorites. And Ganja and Hess, I watch over. I love Ganja and Hess. I love Bill Gunn in that movie. I love everything about that movie. It's weird. It does not have a straightforward narrative story. It is Black horror, and it's under the label of Blaxploitation. But what it is, it's like it's just I don't know what it is actually. It's like this indie art film horror thing. I love the way Black sexuality is portrayed in it. I think those are the two that I literally go to, like when I just want to watch something from that era.
The Mac is the one for me.
Really?
Oh my God, I love the Mac.
I like the Mac. I like the Mac too.
Not a traditional story.
Yeah, no, it's not.
A hero's journey.
Uh-huh.
Just and so much sort of like philosophy dispensed.
Yeah.
Like just
It's the outfits in that one that make me not leaning quite as much to its serious commentary. But what am I talking about? I mean, Trouble Man's got some outfits too. And Ganja Hess is just bonkers. So I don't know. I love that though. I love the Mac.
So when we go from Blaxploitation, I think about Tarantino, who wants to be a child, a son.
You really gonna keep bringing up Quentin Tarantino? Lord,
Well,
have
I like
mercy.
this fight. I like this fight with you because I love Tarantino.
Yes.
I love Django. I love Jackie Brown.
Okay.
I love
And
Kill
I still
Bill.
love you. And that's all that matters, That's all that matters. I was telling you this earlier. I'm mad because I can never throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's just not how I am. So I'm mad because Quentin Tarantino is one of the greatest filmmakers we've had. And I can't deny it. And when I see a Quentin Tarantino film, I'm like, yeah, he's great. He's great. He's great. I bristle at the way he handles Black culture and Black narratives. I bristle at it in almost every direction. But I can hear and accept that he is a great filmmaker. And some of those movies happen to have Black people in them.
I mean, Django, for me, it is what a slavery picture should be.
What's a movie that you hate? Because I want to talk passionately about how great it is.
I'm just going to name a movie. I hate that. I hated The Hateful Eight.
Well, let me tell you what's great about it. No.
In the first moment of Django, he is freed. And he moves through the film being the free Black.
Yes.
And there's the constant sight gag of white people going, what? He's free? And the freedom is not just on paper. You see it in the way he carries himself, the things he wears, the things that he does. So much so that when he is captured, the way he behaves, they're like, well, he must be different than them. Because the other ones literally don't leave the cage even when the door's open.
Yes.
And they're like, well, he must be because look at him.
But can I tell you why I hate that?
Come on.
Touré, I'm sorry.
Come on.
It affirms the white belief that the only reason why we can't succeed is our attitude.
I don't think that's fair.
And I didn't say that that's what the movie's saying. I'm just saying that's why I'm not as excited about that aspect of the film. Because I'm like, yeah, of course a white person would write that. That a Black man that just decides he's free, and that's all it ever took. That's a very white...
Well, he is liberated by a white man. And then he gets to... Right, of course. And then he gets to show you who he really is.
None of this works for me. His accent isn't even right. I can't. I'm sorry. I love Jamie. I love you so much. I love Kerry Washington so much. You know what, Quinn, I even love you as a person probably. I don't know you. But like, I can't. That movie, I can't do it. Sorry.
I mean, I
love cinema. Please don't
fire me.
No
one's going to fire you. The destruction of the illest Uncle Tom we've ever had on screen, and the whole plantation to save his woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I poke the bear because this is an ongoing conversation.
And by the way,
and I know I'm in the minority.
By the way, I love it because this is what talking about movies should be.
Yeah.
Like you should be able to talk about movies exactly like this and have it not be a personal attack. Because you'll notice I never say Django is a bad movie, and I never say it shouldn't have been made. It's not for me. I had a subjectively negative experience watching this film with a mostly all-white audience. I only saw in it the things that like aggravate me. And that's a personal thing that maybe I need to get over. But so far in my therapy sessions, other things have been the priority. So this is where I'm at. You know, I'm happy for everybody Black involved.
See,
Quentin will survive me not liking that movie.
See, the thing, I try not to care about what the white people in the theater are thinking.
Right.
I'm having my own experience. Fuck them.
Yes.
And I don't care that they laughed or they didn't laugh. And I know some of us don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I saw what he was doing. I liked it.
Yeah.
I got it. I got the attack on white supremacy, the attack on the Klan, the attack of that Jamie Foxx's character, Django, is on the whole system. My God, he gave us a scene where a free, formerly enslaved person whips a slave master. I'm like, yes, please.
I'm really happy for you. I am. I'm happy you had that moment of joy and triumph because that's what it's about. It's about the audience.
Because Steve McQueen, who I revere,
yes,
one of the great Black filmmakers, one of the great filmmakers of our time, gave us a beautiful slavery movie that doesn't have rebellion in it.
Also, the only slavery movie written by an actual enslaved Black person.
Right.
You know, so it's a true account. I don't need to see 12 Years a Slave again either,
never.
right?
Never.
But there is something to the fact that Steve McQueen was the one who made the definitive Black movie that now we don't need any more slave movies after this movie. It took him to make one, you know, for us to be like, oh, maybe this isn't the fun, romantic genre, you know, fantasy of liberation that we wanted it to be. This is a stone cold sober view on something that was a horribly, it's an effective slavery movie. Let's put it that way.
What do we do about Tyler Perry?
What do you mean?
Because you touch on Tyler Perry, but the whole Tyler Perry thing is much more aesthetically and emotionally complex.
It is complex, yeah.
Right? I mean, I think if there's an intergenerational argument, right? How many Thanksgivings and Christmases where the aunties are like, let's watch the new Tyler Perry. And the Gen Xers or millennials are like, no, can we watch Spike Lee?
Yeah.
So we've had that discussion, and I think there's a north-south, maybe south versus west thing also happening there. You know, love him commercially, love him as a business person.
As a producer.
I
would say, which is a cinema art.
For sure.
And he has been able to do as a Black producer something that no one else has done since Oscar Micheaux.
Look, he may be the greatest Black producer of cinema ever.
And that is something in a world where...
Give him that crown.
It's an important crown to get.
But you're also a writer, director, and actor.
Yes.
Now, what are we doing?
I love some of his performances, okay?
Why did you put that tone on performances? Because I'm like,
you're trying to get. Look, let me tell you something.
I'm not trying to get anything. I'm trying to get a real conversation.
I want Tyler Perry to like me because my mom is devastated at the fact that we are not best friends and do not work together. So that's one thing. I think I know where you're going with this, but I think that there's a fallacy inherent in some of the criticism against him. Because the fallacy is that the reason why we have certain narratives about Black people in popular culture and not others is because this man makes these narratives and we would like these narratives over here. That's like the basic argument that I can think of or that I hear often. And my thing is this, if Black people were not showing up for his narratives, he would not be making them. Black people love Tyler Perry.
A certain segment of the
Absolutely.
community.
But don't they get to live?
100%.
Okay. So whose fault is it that the other Black people are being underserved?
To me,
it's not Tyler's fault.
The whole thing of children of a lesser God.
Okay.
That because we have not been served that much great art, right? Cinema. As you talk about modern and historical, as you talk about, we're still in the infancy of Black cinema. There is an attraction to what he does because he's putting Black characters on screen and portraying Black stories and Black tropes and Black culture. Are these quality films?
Yeah. I think, like, if you look back, listen to me.
Are these quality films? We talked about Tarantino, we talked about Denzel, we talked about Jordan.
And we never brought up quality.
Right?
We never brought up quality.
But there was no question that Black Panther is a quality film. I'm arguing a political point, right?
Yeah.
Right. As much as you don't like some of what Tarantino's doing, this is some of the great films of, right? You know, Jordan is making some of the great films.
Yeah.
This is great filmmaking?
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna answer your question in a different way because I know what you're getting at here.
Of course you do.
If you go back and we just talked about how much we revered Blaxploitation, right? Go back and watch every Blaxploitation film ever made by a Black person, and answer me that question about those films. Then go back to the first era of race films, okay? From the time Oscar Micheaux started making movies in the late 10s all the way to World War II. And then you answer me that question about every film that every Black person made during that time.
So my first, Shaft.
That's not the only movie that was made.
No, of course, but I'm just the first film that pops into my head to like, well, how do I retort this discussion? I don't think that the Blaxploitation includes great films and shitty films.
Well, yeah, but the thing that defines Blaxploitation is they're made fast, they're made cheap, and they're made direct to an audience. So Tyler is doing that. We just don't. We right now in our conversation about film, we don't have a place of value for that kind of film.
You and I.
You don't. I didn't include myself in that.
You said we.
We as Black people. But I'm being honest, I can't in good faith put Tyler Perry in another category like that. I can't. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right from my lived experience in the industry. I feel like, it's the problem always is the people who decide who gets to make the movies, who gets to finance them. It's them. They're the people who we have the fight with. I'm sorry. Like, it's not like Tyler stole the money. These audience showed up and gave it to him. So why would he stop giving them what they want?
No, he should do whatever he wants to do, and he's having success. And dig it.
I'm glad we agree on that.
I wish.
Next question.
As a highly experienced filmmaker, with an audience that would show up for pretty much anything, just like for Jordan.
Yeah.
I wish he would slow down.
Okay.
I wish he would try to raise the quality of the films that he's making.
Right.
And not do, I wrote this movie in 3 days. Like,
well, let me tell you, I'm very open to feedback. So if you have feedback for my work, I can address it. But I can't address your feedback for Tyler Perry's work. I'm not going to do that. Not at 41 years old. No. My career began with a negative statement against Tyler Perry, famously. Like the Dear White People trailer begins with all these Black kids at a movie theater being like, fuck Tyler Perry. So I get it. I've been on that side of things. Having now been in the hot seat of Black film director in Hollywood, I can't do it. I can't jump on that bandwagon again. I don't think it's fair.
To you about that?
We had a very spirited conversation. We did. And I thought it went better than apparently it actually did. So I'm not saying this because I don't think Tyler is the biggest fan of me, to be honest with you. But I still believe this. I still believe these things. I think my perspective on it is a little outside of myself and my present day tastes and all that kind of stuff. I think it is important to, as Black people especially, to hold the good and the bad at the same time. I really do. I don't think it would have been possible for Tyler as a Black film producer to, one, become a billionaire, have his own means of production, and do all the other things you expect from a Black artist at the same time. I just don't. It's not possible. It's not made for that.
I mean, to me, I'm like...
No, go on. Tell me more about how you love Django Unchained. Jesus Christ.
I want to tell you about how much I love Killer of Sheep, which you also love.
Yeah.
This is one of the great films.
That's one of the great films.
Black history.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good... we're segueing there. Yeah. Killer of Sheep, Charles Burnett. I mean, he's sort of like...
Early 70s, right? Or 60s?
Was it late 70s? I think it was late 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, late 70s.
Made on the weekends.
Made on the weekends. And it's sort of like... it is a Black artist going completely against the grain or the expectation. He's not taking Black culture and trying to elevate it to pop culture, which I actually do a lot. He's taking the opposite route. He's saying like, no, I want to strip this down. I want to show it exactly how I experience it. And I want to invite you to, even though this maybe doesn't feel like a movie the way you expect a Black movie to be, I'm going to invite you to just slow down and watch what I'm trying to show you over here. And that takes incredible courage and guts. And that is a movie that is made with artistic finesse.
I love Dear White People.
Thank you.
It still holds up. It's still fun. There's a rhythm to it. Are you coaching them or telling them, we want to be snappy, we want to be quick? Like
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, like, I think we were talking about this in a different conversation, but every actor needs something different.
Yeah.
But it was funny with Tessa, because Tessa was like, I know when you wrote this line, you said it some way in your head. And I'm not going to necessarily say it the way you're about to say it, but how would you say it? And
she would ask you that.
Oh, yeah. And we would like work, because it is rhythmic. It's not just performance, especially in comedy and especially in like, something where like people are hyper articulate in Dear White People and they're just always talking. So yeah, it has like a musicality to it, almost like jazz or something. And yeah, we would work on that.
Did it take courage internal courage to say, okay, here's my central character. She's pro-Black as hell.
Oh, man.
But she's going to have a white boyfriend.
Yeah, it take courage. It take a lot of courage. It take
Was there
nerve.
an internal voice that was like, don't do that?
In every direction. I mean, I think being a director is like, when is it like the ancestors warning you and they're right?
Yeah.
And when is it you're just nervous and you're scared, You're constantly I'm constantly trying to find that line. And Dear White People was one of those ones I didn't know. And people were mad. People are mad to this day about all kind of aspects of that movie, and that is one of them. But I'm really proud I did it. I'm really, really glad I stuck to that one because I think the point of that movie is that like our internal lives as Black people are just so much more complicated than a narrative that we might have to play in public. It might be a really important narrative. It might be a political narrative. It may authentically be a real narrative to us. But even then, we are so much more complicated than that. We are people and we're messy and we like, convergent things. And I'm glad that people over the years, like that is the takeaway from that film.
I bet you are proud of the complexity that you created with Lionel, with a gay character in that film, which we don't usually get.
No, and it created an archetype that I see all over the place now. And I don't think people saw Dear White People like, oh, we need that. It's not like that, but it just wasn't acceptable to have a gay character acceptable. It was hard for audiences to accept. It was hard to get anyone to make a movie where there was a Black gay character where them being gay wasn't, a punchline or something. And Lionel is he's like me. He can kind of pass in straight situations. And that was also a character we hadn't seen before. And he was also a nerd. And his thing to overcome is he had to lean towards a community, Black people, that in his particular history have always shunned him. But that's where he needed to be in this film to rise to the level of hero, right? And that to me, because that was my experience, that was a healing experience of like, wow, Black people have always made fun of me and I've always felt put apart because of this part of me, because I'm gay, because I'm interested in things that are maybe off Black culture, and getting over that fear and leaning into the embrace of new kinds of Black community, that was like an important part of my life. And so putting that narrative out there, I don't know, it felt like something that like no matter what you say about that film or anything I make, you can't take that away from me. Like that's a narrative I was able to put into the popular culture.
So wait, you have felt for much of your life separated from the Black community because of the queerness?
Yeah, of course. I feel that way now. But I'm not afraid of Black people. I'm not afraid of being in Black spaces. But there was a time when I just didn't feel welcome. And I had to kind of like get over it.
How did you get over that?
I just did it. I just leaned in, I don't know. I don't know how to, part of it too is you make a Black movie that does okay. You get accepted a little bit into Black spaces. But certainly like growing up and stuff. Yeah, like there was Yeah, I got mocked and I got bullied and I sort of got made fun of in a way that I knew was different than the other boys. And it was before, I think a lot of gay men have this experience. It's like people can sense something about you that they don't like, that you don't even have a word for yet. You don't know it yet about yourself. And of course I have felt that. Yeah.
So they are sensing the gayness, the queerness before
The
you.
gayness, yeah, because you're not like other boys. You're not interested in the same things, and sports don't seem to get you as excited as it. It's just they know something is off about you, and you might even suspect that they have a word for it that they use in private, but you don't. No one ever tells you what it is. So and again, that's like a very common gay male experience, but you add black to it, and it has other implications. Because if I don't have black people, what do I have?
Right.
Where can I feel at home?
I mean, black people do want you to say, okay, you have multiple identities, but you're black first, right?
Yeah.
Which in some days, in some situations, you are black first.
Yeah.
And other times you are queer first
Yeah.
or equally black and queer.
Yeah.
Right? Why do I have
yeah.
to choose? Can I be down without choosing?
Right. Yeah, I wish, And I think internally I am. There's a space where it's just me, in here somewhere, and that I can have access to. But out there in society, yeah, it can sometimes. It actually very often feels like you're making a choice, just by the fact that we're talking about the black experience primarily and not the queer experience is evidence of that.
Well, yes, but this show is about
Right, but
being black.
I'm able to make this show for you know what I mean. Like I think that's partly a societal thing too. But I think I am black first, if I'm being honest. I knew I was black first. They're both like inextricable. Like I don't know how to separate them. I also kind of feel like black and queer were in the same category at a certain point in time in America's history too. And also black is something I can't hide, If you don't know already, sometimes I can, shockingly, I can, surprise you by telling you that I'm gay. But most people know I'm black right away. Yeah.
Just for the record, can you talk about some of the core influences of Dear White People?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. So obviously, like, Spike is an influence, but so is Robert Altman. So is Fritz Lang. A lot of those sort of composed shots where you see people in groups comes from my love of Fritz Lang, particularly Metropolis and a movie called M. He made these movies about groupthink and groups coming together and despite like their ideals and their intentions, like becoming something else once they become a group. And I felt like so much of Dear White People is like, what group are you part of? Are you part of this group of black people? Are you part of that group? What are you more of a white kid? And so like I invoke him a lot in that movie. I think Ernst Lubitsch is also a huge inspiration. Just the way he put narratives together that feel kind of like rom-coms and fun and comedies on the surface, but layers and layers below. He's actually doing some really subversive, social commentary. That was a big influence for sure.
Anything else?
God, I mean, tons. But those are the ones that come to mind.
Just trying to get you to say the one.
What do you want me to say? Who you want me to say? Tyler Perry? Touré. Oh my God. Wow. Talk about Touré.
You brought it up. I didn't ask about it. You told me. I had no idea.
Okay, yeah, no, okay. Movie-wise, those are the influences. But Touré, I don't know if you know this. I've never told you this before. Who's Afraid of Post-Black America? That book changed my life because I thought these things that I was thinking about were insane. Like, I didn't know I was being gaslit. Like, whenever I brought up racism, and then whenever I wanted to talk about the fact that, yes, we have a black president, but in some ways that's made things worse among my liberal friends, that seemed crazy to people. That seemed crazy to me. I didn't think that was enough to even make a movie around until I read your book. Because I was like, wow, he's validating what I'm feeling, but you were also able to articulate it. Like, I didn't have words for some of those feelings. I couldn't make an argument, a case for what I was feeling. I felt like I was in this limbo some kind of way. Like, I didn't feel fully comfortable with these thoughts and opinions around black people or white people. And you opened this window for me that was like, no, we're also out here thinking these things too. And so the courage to make Dear White People, yeah, there's a story there, and yes, there's politics on the mind of those characters, but it was also just about creating a space for a kind of conversation and a kind of way of thinking that I knew I needed as a Black person. And I needed that to be validated. And your book was like a personal experience of feeling what I wanted my audience to feel when they saw my movie. So there's no way I could have made that movie without reading your book.
It is unbelievable to me that one of the great films of this era
100%.
that I loved somehow came out of
100%.
that long before we had met or anything.
Your willingness to put those words to paper and to put them out into society changed my life.
I'm going to give you a hug. Thank you for saying that.
Never bring up Django again and we'll be even.
Thank you. Hey, if you like what you saw today, be sure to check out more Touré Show content right here. Don't forget to click that subscribe button for more Touré Show content every week.